pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
As Ann scurries out to get the citizen comment sign-in sheet, I imagine. Okay, no one has signed in for citizen comments. Is there anyone here that just neglected to sign in, but they would like to make a comment? Moving right along. The consent agenda, are there any items, of the 3 items that are on the consent agenda, any requests of any council member to remove them and have them placed on the regular agenda? Hearing none. Resolution, I guess just resolution. I guess we just do them all as one? Okay, I move approval then for the consent agenda.
Second.
Mr. Lechleiter?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reiner?
Yes.
Mr. Keenan? Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Mayor Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Ambrose Grooms?
Yes.
Second reading, ordinance 23-16, Ann?
Changing the fund type classifications of certain funds according to guidance issued by the Government Accounting Standards Board and the State of Ohio Auditor's Office.
Good evening, members of council.
Jerry?
Hi. I'm here tonight to talk about ordinance 2316, and this deals with our financial reporting process that you're in. So just to give you a little background, every year we compile our annual report, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, or CAFR, and we compile this based on accounting principles issued by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. So a few years ago, they issued Statement 54, which significantly changed how fund balance classifications are reported. And also in the context of those changes, gave some guidance on fund type classifications. So at the time that this was implemented, we analyzed all of our funds to get them into the fund balances into the proper classifications, which we did. However, in considering a few of these funds, it would be more appropriate to report 3 of them in a different fund type classification. So we have been reporting the fund balances, the classifications of the fund balances of those funds correctly, but this ordinance proposes to change the fund types that they're reported in. I'd like to emphasize that this won't change the normal operations of the funds. They'll still remain the same on our books, and still operate the same. This is just for financial reporting at year-end on a GAAP basis. So the first fund is the Accrued Leave Reserve Fund, which is a fund that where we accrue leave for paying severance payments of employees that leave the city with sick leave balances, vacation balances. So right now, we're reporting this fund as a special revenue fund, and the fund balance is committed, which was established by council. And the revenues going into this fund are basically money out of the general fund and some other funds. We had reported the revenues as charges for services in that fund, and then the expenditures in the funds that pay the payroll expenditures from which that money was taken. So since this is basically just funded by the other funds, it really probably more appropriately should be called transfers rather than charges for services, in which case the fund would really no longer qualify as a special revenue fund, but should be reported with the general fund. And that's what this ordinance would do. And the fund balance would still be committed. Those resources would still be set aside for that same purpose. It would just be reported with the general fund on a GAAP basis. Okay. The next fund is the Unclaimed Monies Fund. This is the fund established by Ohio Revised Code Section 9.39. This is where if we have money that's not been claimed by anyone, for instance, outstanding checks that are never cashed, we hold this money in this fund for a period of time. Excuse me. If the money is not claimed within 5 years, then it reverts back to the general fund. We have previously been reporting this as an agency fund, but a more proper presentation would be to report this with the general fund as well, since eventually those resources will go into the general fund if they're not claimed by the person that the money is owed to. And then the last fund is the Cemetery Perpetual Care Fund. This was a fund that was established under Ohio Revised Code 759.12 and 759.15, which set aside money to care for the cemetery. Excuse me. This is funded with charges for services from the sale of the lots and a one-time maintenance fee and non-resident fees. That money is to be held in perpetuity, and just the interest on the investment of those funds is to be used for the care of the cemetery. We had previously been reporting this as a special revenue fund as well. It would more properly be reported as a permanent fund based on the fact that we're holding the principal of that money in perpetuity and not spending that, only spending the investment portion of the money. A permanent fund is established, that's designated by GASB to be for funds that have this situation. Are there any questions?
Council,
Yes.
questions? John?
I'm curious, and I've always been curious about this, the cemetery fund. We had a very reasonable charge for a grave site there for years and years and years. Is that well-funded? For the maintenance? I mean, we've got somebody mowing that every week for 26 weeks and taking care of the gravel and the roads. And I'm just sort of curious because I thought we were more than reasonable on the purchase of the grave sites there.
Right now, the balance in that fund is about $1.2 million. However, no money has been spent out of this fund yet. It wasn't to be spent until all the cemetery lots were sold, so which is projected to happen possibly next year.
So what's really happening then is Parks and Rec mowing that, or who's mowing the grass for the cemetery all these years?
There is another fund for the cemetery, and we're using that as to fund some of those expenditures.
Right, so the general fund subsidizes the cemetery fund through an operating transfer, and we include that in the operating budget each year in the annual appropriations. So any expenditures related to the cemetery do come out of that cemetery fund, which is considered a special revenue fund. This permanent fund that Jerry is speaking about has not been touched and will not be touched, as he indicated, until all of the lots have been sold.
You can't touch the principal of that either.
Correct.
Correct.
So, and it's mandated by the state of Ohio that we care for cemeteries, no matter whether we have money or not.
Yeah.
Pretty much something you have to do.
So when we sell all the plots, will we start accessing those funds then and not move the general fund's monies over?
Right, to the extent that the interest earned can
1%
pay
of $1 million,
for- right,
It's not gonna be a lot.
can pay for
$10,000.
the
Yeah. So, do the
operations
math.
of the cemetery.
Yeah.
I imagine we will still need a general fund transfer.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Council? Chris?
I had a question, unclaimed monies fund?
Pardon?
The unclaimed monies fund?
Yes.
How much typically in a given year on average, say the last 5 to 10 years, would that fund generate?
Right now, we have year-end, we had a balance of about $38,000.
And
That-
that balance is accrued over 1 year, or it's accrued over?
That's accrued over a number of years. There was more money in that. We sometimes move money over there and have, but that money wasn't generated in 1 year.
So in a given year, what would you expect?
I would have to look at that and get back with you as far as the yearly amount.
Well, they accrue it for 5 years, and then it goes into general fund.
Correct.
The sixth year or whatever that matures goes to general, and then you've got a new 5-year started.
Correct, so it's kind of an ongoing
It's a rolling.
process. We-
So it's just
So you're probably looking at $6,000, $7,000 a year perhaps, on
relatively
average.
small dollar amounts. It
Okay.
just depends on who doesn't cash their checks. We do have a mechanism in place to reach out to people over a certain dollar amount that haven't cashed checks, whether they be accounts payable checks or payroll checks over time, so that we're not just idly sitting on it for any extended period of time. We do make an effort to reach out to those people.
Just wanted an idea roughly what we're looking at. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll move for approval of ordinance 23-16.
Second.
Mr. Keenan?
Yes.
Mr. Lucklider?
Yes.
Mayor Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Ambrose Crooms?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reiner?
Yes.
Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Resolution 37-16, Ann?
Authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with the Dublin City Schools for provision of school resource officers.
I'll
Need
introduce
an
it. Hein?
introduction.
Yes, good evening, members of council. This represents the renewal of the contract that we have with Dublin City Schools to provide SROs to the 4 middle schools and 3 high schools in the district. As we have in the past, the 2016-17 proposed agreement would have us sharing equally, again, with the schools, the cost of 5 of those SROs.
Council, any questions?
This is essentially status quo.
Status quo with updates in terms of costs. The changing cost just reflects our estimated
Right. Thank you.
increase for next year.
Chris? No? Ann?
Mr. Keenan?
Yes.
Ms. Aludo?
Yes.
Mayor Peterson?
Yes.
Ms. Ambrose Crooms?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reiner?
Yes.
Mr. Lucklider?
Yes.
Staff comments, Dana?
Thank you. Good evening, members of council. Just wanted to highlight a few items that were in your packet under informational reports and general correspondence. Just wanted to highlight the Clean Fleet certification. We were one of 8 fleets in the nation to receive the Fleet Master certification. I just wanted to highlight that and congratulate the fleet staff on that. That's a really big deal to get that. I also wanted to congratulate Christine Ardecchia, our volunteer services director, who will receive a national recognition by that organization of volunteer coordinators at their national conference here coming up later in the month. So congratulations to Christine. We all know what a great job that she does. Also wanted to point out, it's not listed in here, but we mentioned it earlier in the during the Finance Committee meeting that United Healthcare awarded Dublin. We were 2 of 11 organizations recognized nationally for our employee health and wellness program, so I just wanted to highlight that. You have a memo in your informational packet relative to the disposal of a mower, specifically to Shawnee Hills, and I just wanted to get direction from you that you're okay to make that sale. It has already been declared surplus per a previous resolution that you passed. And in a dialogue that I had with the new administrator, Steve DeBolt, there at Shawnee Hills, they were in the market for a mower, and I said, well, hey, we have surplus mowers we're trying to sell. The cost at about $2,500 would be the minimum bid of what we would ask on Gov Deals, and I think it would be a nice gesture to offer that mower to them at that cost. So would just like a sort of a proxy vote or a head nod that that's okay to do.
Anybody have a problem with the concept? Hearing none?
Okay, appreciate that. We'll make that happen. Thank you. A couple more comments. Just a reminder of council workshop next Monday, June 20th. That has a start time of 6 o'clock. We'll go to 8:30. We'll be discussing West Innovation District and Ohio University Campus Master Plan. There'll also be a discussion on an update on the pedestrian bridge design, as well as some conceptual looks at the John Shields Parkway Bridge. The reason we're looking at those together and making you aware of it is because those impact how we would obtain permitting in the river corridor. So it's important that we get a little bit of a guidance from you on that. And then a capital budget, or I'm sorry, I wanted to thank everyone for the great Memorial Day celebration that we had, the preparation for that, as well as for preparation for the Memorial Tournament and the execution of that. I just wanted to thank staff and for all their efforts and thank the public for all their patience relative to traffic and so forth, but I think things went pretty well. I wanted to mention to council that, we are getting into capital budget cycle coming up. We'll have a series of meetings in August about that, as well as a workshop. As a result of some dialogue I've had with council previously, I wanted to borrow some time off of the next meeting in June, council meeting in June, to have Angel give a little bit of an overview on the fiscal condition, fiscal background that we would normally do in the workshop. To do that at the next council meeting to help buy time in August, but also to help start to define expectation around capital budgeting and dollars available and so forth. And then on July 5th, in that packet, you'll get a report from us that shows a list of, or an inventory of all the capital projects that we have identified, either things we've heard from the public. It's our normal needs assessment or inventory. We've heard it from the public, obviously keeping an ear to the ground as to the things that you may be interested in as council, and as well as staff's own assessment of capital needs. And I wanted to share that entire list with you and the associated costs so that you have some awareness. And that would give you a few weeks to look that over. And if there are items on that list that aren't on that list that you'd like to see on that list, you can make us aware of that. That'll give us some time to potentially cost some things out. Everyone will see, the overall need that's out there. And then when we come back in August, as required, staff will propose a capital budget, for the 5-year outlook, and then you can tweak that, obviously, as you would do as you review the capital budget. So that's a little bit different than how we've done it in the past, but I think it gives you a little bit more information up front and allows a little bit more of an iterative process between staff and council, which is what I think I heard you say previously you'd like to have. So just want to make you aware of that. That's a little bit of a change. And then last, I want to hand it over to Angel, who has a little bit of information about our recent audit.
I just wanted to let council know that I have this evening an exit conference declaration form. As I outlined in the memo in your packet, council and/or the city manager are entitled to an exit interview with our auditors. As of our notification or correspondence with the auditors yesterday, we do not have a management letter at this point in time, which is excellent news. Our audit has gone very well. They're still finalizing things, so it's certainly not done yet. As soon as I have a draft report, I will get that in your hands. But if there's any council members that know at this point in time whether they want one or do not want one of the exit interviews, I will be here afterwards, and I can just have you indicate so on this form.
Very good.
Anything else? That it, Dan?
Okay. Committee reports, P&Z, obviously Amy's not here. Administrative Committee, Mike, anything to report?
Nope.
Finance Committee?
Just that we had our meeting tonight. We've given staff some direction on the employee benefits, and they're going to get back to us. Stay tuned.
Public Services, we have no Amy. Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission, Tim?
Yes, thank you. Dana and I attended a meeting last week, and one of the things that was discussed was the due structure for the members that participate in the commission. And anyway, this was a proposal, and I don't believe, we didn't vote on it yet, but it was just a proposal. One of the things that struck me, this is the first time that I had seen this, is that I believe that it's based on population, and not surprisingly, among the members, we're the 4th largest member after Columbus, Franklin County, and Delaware County, if I'm not mistaken. And depending on the rate that's ultimately adopted, we would pay somewhere between $23,000 and $26,000 per year. By contrast, for example, Columbus, our population is listed as 44,641. Columbus, by comparison, is 818,912. And their dues at the lowest rate, if that's adopted, would be $425,000 and some change per year. So anyway, for what that's worth. Also, we passed a resolution, and it's to apply for a grant through the United States Department of Transportation, which has announced that $60 million are available through this is the acronym is even too long for people to say, but it's the Advanced Transportation and Congestion Management Technologies Deployment Grant. And this resolution supports the City of Dublin, Marysville, and Union County in cooperation with Battelle and The Ohio State University in their application for this particular grant to make improvements to the US 33 corridor with the ultimate goal of improving traffic congestion and installing equipment for connected vehicles and autonomous vehicle research. The key partners, as you might expect, would include Honda, Honda Research, Honda Engineering, Marysville and East Liberty, Honda Auto Plants, Transportation Research Center, as well as the City of Columbus. And the connected vehicle equipment that is proposed to be installed through the grant would be for truck platooning on the US 33 corridor, and autonomous vehicle research funded through the grant would take place at the Transportation Research Center located on the corridor. So in any event, that was pretty exciting, really. I mean, we're hopefully, going to be at the forefront of developments like this. So that's what we did at Morpsey.
Staying with Mr. Leckletter, Logan Union Champaign Regional Planning Commission.
Nothing.
How about the US 33 Innovation Corridor Group?
That meeting was last Friday morning. Again, Dana and I attended. We're trying to get to a conclusion with respect to the plan and in a form that could be adopted by the participants. One of the sticking points was the consultants made a presentation to the Jerome Township Planning Commission, and it was their recommendation, and I want to emphasize the point that it hasn't been considered by the Jerome Township trustees yet, but the recommendation out of the Planning Commission was to delete a reference in the plan that points out that what Jerome Township adopted with respect to Jackman is essentially inconsistent with their comprehensive plan. I'm not saying anything that wasn't said in the meeting or whatever, but the feeling was on the part of Jerome Township, at least their planning commission, was that was kind of piling on, I guess. So, and there was also some, we've had many conversations regarding Jerome Township not requiring that prospective developers submit traffic studies, and so we had a lot of discussion about that. They have been told by one of their trustees, I think, and perhaps others, for many years, that they cannot require that. One of the other participants, a trustee from Mill Creek, in fact, that's part of their process, and that's very important. That's why we see what happened with Costco. We had to have these, big meetings with the developers and Union County and so forth to figure out ultimately who was going to fund that improvement after Jerome Township had approved the development with little to no consideration for the traffic impact. So we're trying to get those things ironed out. And then there was also a smaller presentation made by Eric Phillips, Union County Economic Development Director, regarding what is being described as the Northwest 33 Innovation Corridor Fiber and Smart Mobility Initiative. And I guess as background pointed out that Union County is the third fastest growing county in Ohio, talked about projected population growth being close to 50% through 2040. But earlier this year, Dublin, Marysville, Union County, and Union County retained a consultant to develop a strategy to expand the fiber network along the Northwest 33 Innovation Corridor. And the goal of the project is to extend fiber along the Northwest 33 corridor to allow access to Dublin's Metro Data Center. And so anyway, it's an economic development initiative, for the benefit of all our partners to the Northwest, and we're currently working on a partnership agreement. Dana, I'm sorry, I should have offered the opportunity to add both to this and the previous comment.
That's great, and I think what we'll do probably in your next packet is share, we got this on Friday, not that we weren't aware of it or haven't been done, and Doug have been intricately involved in this, but I thought they did a nice job of, they being Eric Phillips and Union County, put a nice presentation together, so we'll share that with you, and they'll give you a little bit of that background. But it's really nothing you don't already know relative to our partnership with them and looking at this grant relative to the Smart Mobility Corridor, and how that involves certain infrastructure like fiber optics and the programmatic needs to go along with that. So, but we'll share that presentation.
Yeah, I'm sorry, as a prelude, I meant to state the obvious, which is that, Dana has reported on this frequently, so this isn't news.
No,
to
no,
anybody,
I'm
I don't
glad
think.
you
But in any
mentioned it.
event, thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Tim. Dublin Arts Council, John?
Yeah, I just want to share with you, I've been, of course, pursuing their said application for a liquor license, and it's gone along pretty well. We have one hang-up. Since we are the landlords, they're going to require a new sink and drainage system and a grease trap system. And I think they're wise, and they're pursuing the more ambitious program, which is, and this is the food permit, so allow them to do a whole variety of things. Of course, the context is that we're hoping they can do a lot more in fundraising and raise more monies and have a more viable organization. So I guess we are the landlords of record, and we probably might be pecuniarily liable for this particular improvement. I was just discussing it with Dave today, and I don't know how you feel about it.
Does he have any budget numbers yet?
No, there's a fair amount of hoop jumping for this. I was really surprised. I think they need an architect's rendering and also an engineer's rendering for something as simple as a drainage system. And I told him, gee, I hope you guys find the right kind of person that can sort of package this, and maybe I can help you find somebody without hiring all those different entities and then the plumber, and maybe we could just sort of mesh this together with somebody who's really got a skilled background. So.
Would
I
it
think
be,
once we get those numbers, we could start that discussion once we know what it looks like.
would it potentially be a bed tax grant kind of funding vehicle, Dana, do you think?
I think it could be. I think we ought to take a look at it in light of that, but just knowing generally what it is and any associated cost, put it in the mix of things.
It's not in the lease. The lease calls for basically maintenance and those kind of things. In addition, would not fall within the framework of the current lease agreement.
No, would not.
So we'd have to find another way to do it, and perhaps bed tax grant could fulfill that, but.
I think it's something of merit, and we
Yeah.
certainly want to support them in their efforts.
Get a budget item.
Okay, thank you.
Is that it?
Yep.
Board of Education, Christina?
We meet tomorrow. I don't think there's anything else. We haven't met since we last talked, so.
Okay. And Washington Township, Sarah and the chief are here. You guys have anything to report that you'd like to share? Nor do I. Thank you. Council roundtable, Chris?
Sorry. With respect to the memos, there was a memo in here regarding mesh fitness partnership opportunity. I just wanted to make sure that whatever we do with, this, workout facility, that we would make available to any workout facility in the city. I don't want to have a special arrangement with them or have, give them maybe, more preferred treatment than anybody else. And so reading through this, I had some concerns about giving them space in the rec center and allowing them space in the newly created park and things like that. So I want to be very careful that we don't treat any entity with preferred treatment, that the ground will be level for everybody.
Okay, appreciate that input, and certainly agree 100% on that. In fact, I've asked the rec staff to take a look at such partnerships elsewhere with other private sector entities. I think that there could be the opportunity to, I tell you where I go work out, I just happened to sit down with the memberships, telling Matt this today, I sat down with the membership director there Saturday and said, what if something like this, and they were all about it. So I think that there could be the opportunity to do similar things with other groups, so.
That's great communication. At a minimum, that you happen to have opportunity where you were, but I'd like to see us send a letter or, communicate intentionally with everyone that would fall in this same
I've
business
asked,
plan.
yeah, my point is I've asked staff and I've asked Matt to take a look at a comprehensive program like that that at least approaches all of those similar kind of facilities in and immediately around Dublin.
Good. I wanted to mention the city support to the Historical Society memo. I thought there was a tremendous amount of really good information there, and I think it's important that we continue to highlight the good things that our Historical Society does. The Giving Garden, with the partnership with Wendy's and IGS, and is really great things, and I don't know, just wanted to mention that because I think it's important that we support the Historical Society as much as we possibly can. On May 26th, we had the 4-miler, and I did not hear any communications from any residents with respect to that. I know years previously, we'd had some struggles. If we did hear something, I don't need it tonight, but I would like to gain that feedback so that we can make informed decisions moving forward. Tournament had wonderful activities, and the volunteer party was great. Those volunteers worked so hard. I just wanted to mention that the Memorial Day ceremony was really, really well done, particularly the messages that we received from the high school kids and our own residents as well. That was really great. And I did have a chance to go to the Alex's lemonade stand yesterday, and those kids they had a tremendous amount of energy, and it was really fun to see. They put together a great little benefit, so I'll look forward to hearing, what the results of their time was. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Christina? Thank you, Chris.
I actually also shared some of the same concerns that Chris had regarding mesh. I think that it also needs to be looked at in context of what our overall needs assessment is. And I know I owe you and Matt, a follow-up regarding the information that you sent me from a programming needs perspective. I just made it all the way through the documents yesterday, so I'll be reaching out to you. But I want to make sure if we're offering any additional items that's taken into consideration within that context, because that potentially changes the mix. So that's all on that. And I'm kind of excited to have additional partnerships. I think there's potential there. I want to look at it in its entirety. I did want to just extend a congratulations to Dublin City Schools on their agreement with Columbus and Win-Win. I think it was fair and it was important. I know they worked hard for it, and it provides our citizens who lie within those boundaries some, I think, much-needed breathing room from a stability standpoint. So I think that's really great. And that's really all I had.
Thank you, Christina. Mike?
Yeah, just a couple items. Chief O'Connell, Sarah, and Chief Hines, great job at the tournament. I know it's a lot of extra effort on behalf of your respective departments to keep track of those many thousands of people that come and visit our city, and probably lots of extra runs, so thanks for that. I also just briefly had I had a text from my brother-in-law, who's a Hilliard City councilman, and Chief, I know that you were involved with the officer that was in the tragic accident out on the northeast side. We appreciate your effort, but I wanted to share this with everybody. This is from Bill Utley, Hilliard City councilman. Just wanted to let you know how comforting it was to see so many Dublin police officers in Hilliard yesterday and today patrolling our streets. The past couple of days, I know they stick together and feel blessed to live in America. Thank you, Dublin, Columbus, and Upper Arlington. Hope and pray we never have to repay this gift and favor. So that's to you, and hats off to the department. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Tim?
Yeah, just to add my compliments to everyone on staff involved in supporting the Memorial Golf Tournament. Also, I think since we last met, we had our Memorial Day event, and so I'd also like to offer my thanks to staff that were supportive of that, and to John, who emceed the event, if you will. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. John?
Just want to say that I had the opportunity to meet with the mayor and I think the vice mayor of Shawnee Hills, and got to talk to them about a sidewalk going through their community, which I think is very important because, as you know, we're trying to conclude our sidewalk system so you can go all the way from the school west to east and make it to the zoo and Zoofari. So, it was a number of years ago that there's a lot of interesting things that happen in such a casual area. And a number of years ago, we discussed the 745 Glick Road intersection, which was a huge problem between the state and the two jurisdictions. And it was within a month we came to an agreement after that. So I'm hoping that we can finally conclude the pedestrian problem that we're having there. I wanted to mention to you that I do want to contact an OSU professor who's done a really in-depth study on the heat sump problem with the city of Columbus, which rates very high. And I think it's really interesting for him academically because about 36 years ago, we wrote an entire green ordinance about trying to really control that. We were way decades ahead of our time than any other municipality. And I think we'd be an interesting study group for him to look at. They're saying that there's a 4+ temperature swing in Columbus, and of course, again, there's a lot of emphysema, respiratory ailments that come from that. So I'd like to see where we stand in all that, and hopefully he can come up with some numbers. This seems to be, he did say that it was interesting that, I won't mention the municipality, but he found out they were very unresponsive to this kind of information. But Columbus is coming up with a program to plant 6,000 trees to try to get them some kind of canopy to protect the area and reduce the ozone. So, with your permission, I want to continue with that discussion. And I don't think we need any financing for it. I think it's sort of an academic exercise, but it'd be a neat thing to see, since we were an old city and actually established this kind of thing for our citizens, what the impact really is. That's it.
That's it? All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, John. Just a couple of quick things. I just wanted to let everyone know, we did send a proclamation to Emil Brolick, who retired from his position as CEO and president of Wendy's. After 30 years in the industry, he's been a strong leader in our corporate community and a great partner for the city of Columbus. We pass along our congratulations to his retirement. It's my understanding he'll remain on the board of directors, so we look forward to continuing to work with him. I did want to mention congratulations to Christine Nardecchia. Around here, we seem to get kind of used to people getting these types of awards, and it's really amazing. She's receiving a national award for the services that she's been providing to our community, so congratulations to her. Alex's Lemonade Stand, I've gotten preliminary numbers back. It once again was a success. I think it'll exceed what it did last year. I'll get back to you guys with the specifics on that. The memo about I really appreciate that memo about the historic Dublin and the interactions and the updates and all those things. Really, really important stuff, and I appreciate the update. And congratulations to Dan Sullivan and all the guys up at the tournament. They continue to exceed expectations every single year. And I was talking with somebody in my office today about the number of people that come into this community for a week that this city absorbs like it's no big deal. And we turn around. I ran into a guy at a restaurant we were at down in Hilliard during the week of the tournament, and he said he couldn't believe he'd come up here and there were no traffic problems getting in and no traffic problems getting out. I made him write this down on a napkin so I could prove that someone said it later, but it is truly astounding that we can have a sporting event in the middle of our residential community that lasts an entire week for all those people and do it with such grace and apparent ease. So I really appreciate everybody's efforts in that regard. And John?
Just one other thing about the tournament, too. I want to thank City Council for doing this. The extension of the bicycle track on the right and left side, the extra 5 feet. Every year, the entire center median is tore apart, totally ruined. The city's responsible for replacing some of it. Muirfield throws in some money. Sometimes the tournament throws in some money. But boy, I'll tell you, that bicycle track allowed the extra solution to the problem of the cars pulling off and tearing up the center median because they could stay pretty close to the parking zone. So it really helped a lot. And then the safety aspect of that's really important because it gave you an extra 5 feet with people walking out of their cars and trying to cut across the single lane. So again, City Council did really a good thing in getting that done safety-wise, and just annual expenses now put to bed that I don't think we'll have to deal with.
Just one final thing about the tournament. It was really a neat thing to participate in when the Consul General from Japan was here at our, what do they call that, Champions Lunch or whatever it was that we had gone to a few weeks ago. John managed to get Mr. Hidaka and Consul General in to photograph with Jack Nicklaus, and then with Sandra's help and Dan Sullivan, they got those pictures. They got them under Jack Nicklaus's pen, and they had those autographed for both of those gentlemen, that we were able to present them at the lunch that we had. They were tickled. It was an honor for me to be able to present them to them and to be there with my fellow council members, so I really appreciate all the effort that was put into that. That was truly an astounding thing that was pulled off. Anything else from anybody? We stand adjourned.